In the wet summer of 1847, insurance investigator Samuel Hartwell discovered it. Something that chases him until the end of his time. 17 life insurance has been declared. Charleston-Columbia Road is only 8 months old and includes healthy men aged 25 to 50. Everyone is dying. Sudden heart failure has left it near the road. It was not easy to make these deaths particularly concerned. Their frequency is the fact that each victim was discovered with a special smell of breath and coriander. The petals are strangely distributed throughout the room. Local governments have rejected these deaths naturally. It refers to a healthy health risk during low travel across the country for a few wet months. However, Hartwell's investigation will find a calculated murder network. The most unlikely murderer will forever change the way Charleston elites saw attractive women in their homes. We invited tired travelers. Each death occurred below. Almost the same situation. A successful businessman arrives at the country INF after a long trip. Complaints regarding fatigue and recruitment of special drugs for charitable goods. He then succumbs to a mysterious heart disease a few hours after his arrival. I was paid insurance payment. $85,000, someone systematically collecting pain asset. Families who never question the practical time of this policy. Before continuing the story. If you wish, the House of 6 Million Wayfire and the House of Women who became hospitality in the South and the House of Women who became a deadly art form. These dark fairy tales of America's forgotten past. Subscribe to our channel and tell us about it in the comments. What condition have you heard? We want to hear community enthusiasts who are grateful for the darkest chapter of the Icon history. The truth about Levi Fisher. Plan to worry more than you imagined. And Hartwell's evidence revealed that they would discover it. The most dangerous predators on the roads of South Carolina quote the Bible on the church social networks. He offered toxic tea with a smile that could melt anyone's heart. The virtues of women. Charleston in 1847 became one of the best. A prosperous port. Cobblestone streets located in a large mansion where rice and cotton states were built. The miracles of architecture contributed to what was found in London and Paris. Ashley and Cooper rivers except. The peninsula, like protective weapons, their water reflects the Church of St. Michael and the elegant pillar arrows. Countless planters. Spanish MX, old oak covered. It created an almost etheric beauty that disguised the darkest calculations of the city. The cruel reality of slavery, thugs among traders, social pressure, it. Destroy your reputation with hearing whispers. It was a company built on difficult hierarchies. Of course, wealth helped, but the bloody lines were worth more than wealth. Elite Charleston held it. Pass a wealth of weddings, strategic commercial partnerships, unexpected behavior codes. The appearance of material. The woman should have been decorative and beautiful. Their achievements are limited by watercolors, French conversations and delicate art. Management of slaves at home. Women who crossed these borders clashed. A social exile who can spread to all families. The road between Charleston and Columbia has arrived. It's the most important. The market for their products. Cotton brokers, terrestrial speculators, rice planters, and tobacco merchants regularly make this trip and often transport important quantities. Detailed information about money, important legal documents, and commercial operations. That's how the route was. Unfortunately, they froze through thick pine forests known for isolation, and as you know, they worked and crossed the highways. Dangerous. For decades, you can hide evidence of a crime. I'll travel along this road. Quality and safety vary considerably. Some facilities provided rich planters and provided authenticity. Luxury, while others offered a little more than the roof and suspicious food. Experienced. Travelers knew how to carefully explore their judgment based on the recommendations of trustworthy partners. To avoid hotels that cannot provide links from a fine family in Charleston. Samuel Hartwell, 34. Arrived in Charleston with a reputation for representing the Virginia Mutual Guarantee Company. To resolve the impossible case, other investigators refused to be desperate. His methodological nature, his education at Harvard, and his desire to spend months. Details made him one of the most pagan oddities of Southern investigators. A more desirable solution than obviously complex problems. His success said. I'm due to 12 years of investigation, he never could resolve it. The fact is that he was obliged to continue this. The group of unusual insurance complaints first appeared to be mutual routines. Charleston Insurance Company. In the Yellow area, sudden deaths of middle-aged businessmen were rarely uncommon. Fever, malaria and cholera can be hit without warning. Hot and humid climate. I have hit people who were not used to the low state of the country, and often have constant travel stress. It is fatal for men who exceed physical limitations. But qualified eyes discovered the laws that Hartwell chose to lack or ignore local investigators. Each victim. They were generally healthy when they purchased insurance policies within 6 months of death. Everyone died while traveling alone without the presence of family to ask uncomfortable questions. Majority. It should be noted that each police were sold by the same insurance agent. A mysterious woman who appears to have appeared along the travel route and disappeared like a ghost. $6 million. The house sat 6 miles north of the Charleston city boundary. Especially around the gas click before entering the thick forest. Built in Georgian style. Piazza, designed to catch all the winds available, big white pillars. A Tozenfield window that can be opened in a fresh few months. It looked like a southern incarnation. A sophisticated hospital and taste. The building arrangement has been chosen. Still by someone who includes both the needs of travelers and the benefits of isolation. Fatigue. Travelers are grateful for the exploration of elegant housing sufficient from Charleston to avoid city noise. It smells but is close enough to reach civilization in the event of an emergency. A. The surrounding scenery ensures natural confidentiality. 3-sided thick forest and Goose Creek swims forth, ensuring that all hotel activities are guaranteed without your curiosity realizing. Neighbor. The property was acquired 3 years earlier than John and Levionia Fisher. He earned it with money, and John inherited the uncle of the deceased Savannah. Local entries show that they paid. The important properties that immediately began repairing were the most elegant stop between Charleston and Columbia. Investing in Persian carpets and crystals. Chandeliers and imported furniture provided business inspectors with very confident or access. Funding far beyond the fact that most participants can order. Lavinia Fisher had that beauty. Strong people forget their names and abandon carefully planned commercial strategies. At 26, she was unusual. For women of her time, burning hair that is shining brightly from the sun. The copper and green eyes seem to be seen directly in the soul of man. She. Despite her time spent in the cruel South Carolina sun and her silhouette was perfect, her complexion was impeccable. A share of the era when women's beauty was strictly determined by precise means and concentrated corsets. More. It is dangerous that her physical beauty was his way. Levovin had almost supernatural abilities to make each individual. She faced the feeling as if they were the most exciting people they had ever met. His voice was carried by the musical. The quality of the aristocracy of the country, this unique accent marked Charleston's finest social circle, and it is immediately defined by anyone and deserves respect and attention. She moved to Grace's practice. Grace proposed a long-standing dance and training course for the department. That was still. There is nothing artificial about its appeal. People who met her always commented on her extraordinary intelligence. Most people will forget his donation to remember his personal data in a matter of minutes. She could remember someone. A few months after a short conversation, ask about a particular company with the name of the child, actual evidence. Interest and sympathy for the difficulties of the family mentioned only by overtaking. This is a warning. The details make the guests feel valuable and appreciate what their families often fail to achieve. John Fisher. On the contrary, it wasn't surprising in almost every respect. The fact that they made them. Partnerships are even more effective. It's short and stocky with liquefied brown hair and forgotten features. He was invisible and was able to move in a memorable world without being noticed. Neighbor. He described it as dedicated to his beautiful woman, calm, hardworking, with cults and adjacent strength. While Rainian was captivating the guests and managing the innocent features, John addressed practical questions. Systematic efficiency. He supported the territory with compulsive care and confirmed that each flower bed had. It lasted perfectly and each building area was perfectly clean. Carpentry skills were exceptional and ready to help neighbors make it difficult to repair or build. A project that the local community considers it valuable, reliable and qualified. And you deserve total confidence. The first death that caught Hartwell's attention occurred on February 14, 1847. Valentine's Day. The irony will only be revealed in a few months. All of Fisher's crimes have been revealed. Merchant Cotton Theodore Ashley son. We have arrived at home of 6 million people. His successful negotiations in Charleston. At 48 years old, Grayson was known. The whole region as a risky person who created the property, including 2 technical aspects. Competitors' cotton production and psychological weaknesses. Follow. Report submitted by local magistrate Cornelius Wetherby, document Hartwell studying the line of the line. For the next few months, Grayson seemed tired, but the rest would be helpful when he arrives at the hotel. There was a day. It was extremely hot in February, the temperature reached almost 70 degrees. Grayson complained about the fatigue of his journey and the oppressive humidity. Most experienced travelers. Levovin personally greeted him during the first entry. It was a different practice. A more ordinary institution or a guest meets a servant. A stable boy. She quickly noticed fatigue and insisted on getting ready. As I argued, special recovery tea. Healing properties. The recipe she described was sent as a result of her generation. It included family and their own carefully ugly garden flowers. Another. The guests were the rice planter named Harrison Calkin and Northern Caroline Tavekane inspector that night. He is called Wesley Dory. Grayson's final time. The 2 men explained how Levia belongs. Cotton merchant with extraordinary attention. Keep an exciting conversation. His physical fatigue. The tea itself is served in one of the best cups of Chinese Ravinia and decorated with the help. A delicate pink rose that perfectly completes the color of an unusual drink. Grayson blessed him. It had a distinctive fragrance and mentioned something in honey notes and flowers, which was not distinguishable. But I found it incredibly fun. The heat and sweetness seemed to restore that energy, almost an hour. Recorded his counterpart with stories about her commercial adventures and her plans. Expanding activities in Georgia. It's a bit tricky as the transformation of Grayson's state gradually began. Initially, none of the witnesses recognized him as more serious than new fatigue. He began to speak. Take a leisurely, occasional break, as if looking for a word for a moment. He avoided it. His face painted in the hot climate. He began to steal the grayish mouth that Levionia attributed the natural effect of post-stress relaxation. Journey. At 9 a.m., Grayson complained of chest pain and difficulty breathing. Vegetables. I was immediately responsible for the situation, and while I was sending John to bring Dr. Poton from Charleston, I personally participated in their suffering. She helps him in his room, ensuring he is comfortable. It may be necessary when they are waiting for medical assistance. The largest Dr. Reginald Poton. Dear Doctor arrived around midnight to find Grayson with a serious obstacle despite his 73 years. Patient. The students were quite widespread. His breathing was sometimes irregular, and he had a distinctive almond similar to that of an almond. The smell seemed to hang from his clothes, thrusting through the entire room. Dr. Poton's teachings have been revealed. Signs of irregular heart rate and severe addiction. It is not possible to determine a particular substance. Responsible person. Despite the efforts of the doctors, Theodore Grayson passed away around 2 a.m. February 15. His body was found impressed by the doctor. Pittenha. Unusual, placed in bed, peacefully located, as if it had fallen asleep, without any signs of cruel convulsions. Copyright or, and you'll see the ojet. Even more strangely, some roses. Petal PES was found to be dispersed on wooden floors around his bed, but Dr. Poton and no one else was there. You can explain their existence. When he looked into it later, I thought Hartwell was particularly suspicious. The incident was Levaway's actions throughout the medical crisis. Several witnesses. It showed that it was surprisingly constructed and effective without showing any hysteria or panic. This was expected of a woman who saw such an injured event. She personally deleted and placed it. Grayson's room before Dr. Arnaton arrived explained that she couldn't do anything. Revenge leaves the poor in a state of value during its end. Moment. The meteor magistrate of Ravinia's opera provided what appears to be questionable about the petals of oleander. A reasonable explanation. She suggested they explode from the window from her garden. He holds some decorative orendra bushes for his beautiful pink flowers. The fact that February was hardly a season for orendra's apogee in South Carolina doesn't seem to have happened. To everyone involved in the original survey. Insurance requirements submitted by Grayson's trading partner Marcus. Redmond was treated without incident at the Charleston Mutual Insurance Office. The company paid a significant amount of $5,000, almost 10 years of salary for most workers. In his file, Grayson was healthy when he obtained the policy just 4 months ago. Police were sold by insurance agent Laura Ferguson in August. Conditional data and links were completely visible. But Theodore Grayson was just the beginning. What is the most systematic campaign for the murder of South Carolina history? Like spring. In 1847, it warmed the low country and returned a cycle of trading with familiar landings and full activity. Death continued with uneasy regularity. Nevertheless, combined with the distributed nature of incidents for several jurisdictions. Respect for those who participated. Observer. In March, Tabaka Inspector William Claiborne almost died. Uniform situation for the Maison death 6 miles. Claiborne, dear. Officials from the Northern Carolina Tobacco Commission went to Charleston to investigate reports. Violation of high-quality supplies targeted at European markets. His sudden death was related to stress. His investigation was combined with her unknown climate in South Carolina, but some details about her. Last night, I interrupted my doctor. Like Grayson before him, Claiborne arrived at the hotel. I complained about travel fatigue, personally present on the left side and prepared his special recovery tea. With the same careful attention, she showed her previous victim. Other guests will be present that night. I remember that the cigarette inspector praised the unique taste of the drink and then seemed to have been significantly renewed. Drink. However, for 2 hours he felt a serious chest pain. Breathing was difficult and progressed quickly due to complete heart failure. Dr. Tayton, called by Charleston again, found Claiborne's body. The same peaceful position that marked Grayson's death, the same smell as the distinctive almonds. It is the same mysterious spread as the orendra pink petals in the room. doctors are growing concern about this. Although coincidence is not a coincidence, similarities were offset by the perception that it sometimes occurs. Medical practices. April led to the death of landowner Edgar Beaumont. For the rich family of Charleston, it was created by one of the most trusted experts in their field. Beaumont. Death followed a more carefully established model, making it more suspicious investigators aware. The intentional nature of what happened. However, local governments continue. Think of each incident as an isolated tragedy without realizing it. The systematic nature of what was clearly a carefully planned crime business. The death of the spring continued. Climb both frequency and good veins. Responsible person. They may have brought in 2 other victims. James Ruth Rice plantation owner. Georgetown, Columbia, and Thomas Bellingham, merchant. The 2 men each died for a week. Another. Both are pioneers of the 6th house after having Van Ravinia / specials. T. Local communities have begun to whisper the obvious curse of the hotel. Some of the most superstitious inhabitants suggest that property can be built on shitty land. It was pursued by the spirit of travelers who died there in the past few decades. But these fears have been alleviated. A true love for the Fizzer family, increasingly prominent in local social and religious circles. Levavin has established himself as one of the most generous philanthropists in the field, producing a significant amount. A local methodology church and an organization of charitable events for families affected by various disasters. She. The Sewing Circle has become a public event that has supported the most respectable women in the region and supported their knowledge of their knowledge. Current literature, music and events include dinner and public assembly. His philanthropy went beyond simple financial contributions. Destalacer. Hurricane in 1846, Lemvina personally cared for her neighbors who were injured or sick. Providing food, clothing and medical care to families who have lost everything is tiresome. In the case of yellow fever. He killed the area last summer and she volunteered to take care of the victim despite obvious personal risks. He earned that his relatives were grateful to his family who survived his attentiveness. John Fisher has earned similar respect in the community due to his practical skills and reliability. He carefully contributed not only to his own property, but also to countless watches that were voluntarily useful. Neighbors with complex construction and repair projects. His carpentry work. He is considered to be greater than most professional masters' payments, and he never accepted the payment of his assistants. That the help of my neighbor was just a Christian business. Devotion explains to each other. It has become legendary among local residents. John often saw them looking at their beautiful women. The pure expression of worship, the legend treated him with sweet kindness, but it seemed to demonstrate the ideal harmony of their marriage. Their relationship is visible, and Southern society embodies all romantic ideals. Combined with the blessings of women, the protection and dedication of precious men. And loyalty. It is during this period that local attachments that grow for physical reasons are the first Samuel Hartwell. They were faced with evidence that ultimately led to their influence. His investigation made him consider. Insurance notes search for models that can explain unusual complaints groups in 3 states. Along the corridor of Columbia, Charleston. What he discovered was brilliant and awful in his system. Execution. Some of the deceased men have obtained life insurance from the same agent, attractive. Women who traveled between Charleston, Savannah and Columbia sell successful important coatings. The businessmen she faced while traveling. According to an agent called Laura Ferguson. Documents provided to various insurance companies, she was a widow in August, entered insurance activities after her husband died in a transport accident. That's what Laura Ferguson's sales file was. Very according to all standards. She's working for less than 2 years. I sold a policy of over $200,000 on total coding. Wonderful. It was made possible by which it was to become one of the most famous agents in the Southeast insurance industry. The level of success with potential customers was almost perfect. Often, you purchase important policies during INS on major travel routes and random meetings at taverns. What? Ferguson was even more prominently successful, his obvious ability to value financial clients. A situation with supernatural accuracy. His political recommendations have always been adjusted to the accuracy of each individual. The ability to pay bonuses, maximize the potential payments of beneficiaries. She appeared to have detailed knowledge of the client's commercial operations, family circumstances, and travel models. This requires a detailed investigation to receive it. Hartwell's doubts grew deeper when he received them. Physical descriptions of several still-living customers of Laura Ferguson. The women were continuous. Very beautiful, described as fuel hair and green eyes. It's extraordinarily expensive for women, and they have their own music. His way of doing it was praised everywhere. Attractive, intelligent, sincerely careful, with extraordinary memories. Personal data that makes each customer feel valuable and understood. The explanation was identical with all the important details of the account I heard from Floating Fisher. I was invited to a house of 6 million. Hartwell's survey has been updated. An emergency in early June when he learned about 3 other fatal incidents in a week. It became an impossible coincidence as everyone follows an accurately established model. Victims. Plantation director Daniel Thornton, cotton mailman Robert Sinclair and Tabakian merchant George Payton have passed away. Another Charleston at Columbia, Charleston. However, each death was a questionable feature. Hartwell learned to recognize. Each person traveled one business trip. Everyone bought life. Everyone died suddenly after Laura Ferguson's past 6 months of insurance and special use. A drink prepared by a housewife who is useful for the corresponding INS. This is the most important thing. That's how each death scene was. Contaminated by the presence of orendra petals and this distinctive smell of sweet almonds. You will sacrifice your clothes and personal belongings. What made these deaths particularly important was the discovery of Hartwell. The fact that 3 men were wearing a considerable amount of money and valuable documents has disappeared before. Their bodies were discovered. Local governments allocated these flights with opportunistic flights. Natural death. However, Hartwell recognized the systemic nature of what was clearly a coordinated offender. A company operated in several locations. His investigation is shown. The fact that Laura Ferguson met each victim during a carefully planned meeting, although it seemed random, is clearly shown. Proof of advanced training. Thornton clashed with her while training in Orange. It shows incredible knowledge of planting methods. Sinclair met her in Charleston. Coffee was impressed by understanding the fluctuations in the cotton market. Poton was like that. She came to her at a tavern in Columbia. There she knew how to handle cigarettes. The way most women have it. In either case, a beautiful insurance agent. His purpose was impressed by their specific issues and knowledge of sincere care for his family. Financial security. She convinced them that an increase in life insurance is necessary for responsibility. A man who faced the dangers of the constant journey of the time was able to commit accidents, illnesses, or violent crimes. No warning. Hartwell decided to put his only chance to the truth. A direct conflict with criminal companies is required. He needs to visit Wayfair homes of 6 million people. Personally, presenting as a potential victim in collecting evidence that can be used to receive a prescription for an arrest. Plan. It was extremely dangerous. If his doubts were correct, he would have been at risk of death. They accept the hospitality of those who have already killed at least 8 men. He spent several days thoroughly trying to establish an identity shelter as cotton broker Samuel Henderson in Richmond, Virginia. Business links with South Carolina planters. His fictional experience included details about his family. Conditions that make you attractive to everyone, financial condition, and recent insurance purchases. I'm looking for a wealth of sacrifice to fly. Hartwell arrived at Six-Way Fair's house on a wet Thursday. The day at the end of June. Carefully studied documented arrival times. Previous victims to ensure that his actions correspond to their model. Like them, he was going to complain about the trip. Be exhausted, accept hospitality suggested by the owner, secretly documenting evidence that can be exposed. Their crime. The hotel was even more impressive to me personally than he represented from the witness's description. A. White pillar buildings glow in the afternoon of sunlight. A floral plant filled the air with competing scents. The global effect was one of elegant prosperity. It seems contradictory to modest income and should generate hotels on the road. Levin Fisher praised him. Personally, in the first entry, Hartwell soon realized how she could have been deceived. An intelligent and experienced man. Her beauty was truly exciting. It turned out to be in his way, and it turned out to be really dangerous. The first few minutes of those conversation, she had almost supernatural ability to make him feel. Though he is the most exciting person I've ever met. His questions seemed relaxed and natural. Curious, Hartwell learned the systematic way she gathered information about her suspicious commercial operations. Family education, travel planning, finances. She demonstrated her knowledge of the cotton market that impresses professional brokers and combined with the charm of women to make her demands. This seems to be a real personal interest, not a collection of calculated intelligence. You look like a taker. Take care of his duties, Mr. Henderson, she said, his green eyes hold it with uneasy strength. I think you took the right steps to ensure the safety of your family. Voyage. When he mentioned it, he recently increased his life insurance through the agents he met. Richmond, his smile began to shine even brighter. His proposed expression of eyes. Satisfied, as if he had confirmed that she wanted to discover. She insisted on getting ready. A special welcome refreshment explaining that his grandmother's recipe is known throughout the Charleston area. For catering properties after a long trip. I use my own flowers. According to her, the garden shows that a careful ugly bed can be seen through the cabin window. There's something about local ingredients that makes sense. Many of our guests told me that it was my special tea. It's not like what they lived when they lived. Random mentions about previous guests who praised his tea. He sent chills down the vertebral columns of Hartwell. He probably understood that she wanted to say. A man who is now dead and buried in an unknown tomb. How does Leviana work on and prepare for the kitchen? Update: Hartwell got the opportunity to explore the hotel's public space with the help of the formed eyes. Professional investigator. All the details he observed. The true nature of Pfizer's operation and the doubt of its apparent source of prosperity. Building. It was supplied by objects that suggest that they are wealthy beyond what any hotel on the road can produce. Persian. The carpet covered refined parquet floors, showing signs of recent costly reconstruction. Oil paint. Golden executives represent exceptional people who could become pastoral scenes and ancestors. Decorative portraits acquired to create an impression of family respect. Crystal chandelier hangs on the ceiling. It is decorated with intricate plaster pieces that require the creation of a master. Dining room. I showed him a red wooden table. This allows easy planting of 12 people surrounded by chairs living in silk fabric. It's higher than most families' one in a year. Silver parts displayed in cabinets with glass conclusions. Characteristics that show that it was created by the finest artisans in Charleston. Who attracted Hartwell's attention? Have you had a small details that offered a recent acquisition and not inherited? Wealth. Money services show no signs of age or wear. Family relics have been sent over generations. I didn't wear crystal glasses. Typical chips or stripes in the room. It has been used regularly every year. Furniture is free from scratches, spots, or mild damage. This was inevitably accumulated in workers. A place where countless guests can eat, get drunk and feel at ease with precious furniture. Or fishermen. Inherited from great wealth, they decided to invest in transforming into the luxury windows of modest hotels, or their business is generating profits far beyond what an explicit number of guests suggest. I'm considering. Systematic death and insurance systems demanded the second people who had Hartwell investigate them. The explanation seemed much more likely. John Fisher came from the fact that it seemed there was a back file carrying the accounting books. When he noticed Hartwell's presence in the living room, he quickly collected it. Human nerve energy. It appears to be completely inconsistent with his previously edited actions and welcoming his new guests, Hartwell realized. The way his hands trembled slightly as he sorted out the documents he carried. /business. Caresser, John explained. With a forced smile that couldn't reach her eyes. It has connections with several merchants in Colombia. Charleston for delivery and recommendation. It is always important to keep a proper record of your transactions. And relationship. The explanation sounded like a rehearsal, as if John had prepared an answer for all the people he could seek for his activities and documents he transported. Hartwell pointed it out too. Humans appear much smarter and calculate that his humble previous actions are assumed. Someone's strong perception is used for constant deception and vigilance. Hartwell heard him slowly pass through the kitchen door and prepare for his refreshing preparation. There was a melody. She was as beautiful as a ghost, but something inside made him deeply clumsy. Perhaps the realization that previous victims have heard the same song in the last few hours of their lives. He discovers he is involved in the kitchen door. He provided years of experience in every process she followed. She moved between the various containers. Banks with someone's accuracy after a familiar recipe were specified using some repetition. He was particularly worried about his expression, it was totally unlike the hot charm she showed a few minutes ago. His face shows almost a focus. The target clinic was measured as various substances in the cup. Take care of your pharmacist and prepare the exact dosage. The conversion was very complete. It looked completely different, cold, calculated and perfectly without emotion, perhaps her death when she prepared what Hartwell suspected. When she realized how he saw him through the door, his actions are reassembled instantly at the time of a hospital teacher. But a simple way to look at it. His true nature was awful in its outcome. She's almost ready. He called gently, his voice again brought the quality of this music, which made him look like an ideal incarnation. The virtues of Southern women. I hope you love him. Many of our guests. He told me he didn't see the fact that they lived when they lived. I will never forget it. It seemed like a busy value to emphasize that she had made unforgettable words. It made Hartwell's blood cold. He realized that she probably said literally true. His victims will never really forget the experience of drinking special tea because he was perhaps the last thing they tried when they tried. She holds a cup in a delicate Chinese saucer, Hartwell when she approaches. I noticed some details that confirmed the worst fears. The tea looked like a rare pink color. Contradicting normal drinks, he expressed a very sweet, floral scent. The main note is that their strength seemed almost drug-like. Most worrying is you can see what he was. Small pieces of plant material floating in liquid, a surprising piece of fragment. Orendra petals found in each scene of his death. When we thought we saw all of this, we were scared. Charleston strengthens. If this story gives you chills, share this video from. My friend loves dark puzzles. Don't forget to press the button as a button to support and subscribe to the content. Create such a story. Please allow me to open together. What happens in this story is a South hospitality man. He transformed one of America's most expensive traditions into a systematic murder tool. Hartwell accepted. Knowing that his next decision would determine whether he fought to remain stable. Live to reveal the truth or become another victim of the most sophisticated murder business. American Crime Stories. The tea had a rare fragrance that seemed to attack his feelings. The main notebook made the head is surprisingly soft and has a strong flower. Simply breathe steam from the cup and feel the light. When Hartwell lifted a thin porcelain to his lips, the scholars who saw him in the energetic expressions that Levin was waiting for were completely visible. It's inappropriate for those who simply provide tired travelers. He understood with crystals. The clarity he saw in the eyes of predators who committed not only art but murder. Implementation. He was surprised that it all came from Fisher's washing, his beauty, his charm, his apparent dedication to Christians. His reputation as a charity, the ideal Southern mistress, was merely a carefully designed expression. He attracts the victim and trusts him completely. She armed all sides. The virtues of women who have changed hospitality by Southern society. Kindness and education of concern over a systematic tool of destruction. Instead of drinking tea, Hartwell was intentionally overturned, pretending to travel a little when he lifted the cup. The contents of the expensive Persian carpet have a wealth of apologies for its awkwardness, and apparently. Travel! The liquid spreads through a complex carpet pattern, which fills the part. Very sweet scent, revealing details that confirm all the doubts he developed in a few months. Investigation. The Livnia response was immediate and fully suggestive. For a moment, the flash of pure rage surpassed its beautiful features. He felt his blood was being spoiled by his veins. Woman masks on the south of meat. He slipped completely, revealing something inhuman in the calculation of the cold. Then, with visible efforts, she was able to right herself and recreate it. Her green eyes continued to melt in a barely controlled rage, but her charming smile. How sad, she. She said her voice supported the quality of her music despite the obvious struggle to control her emotions. I'm really sorry. You missed the opportunity to live the recipe for your special grandmother. Maybe you're more tired than you. I'm on your trip. Prepare another cup immediately. It's really important that you have a total advantage. Recovery properties. Don't worry about my account, Hartwell simulated embarrassment. Keep an eye on his reaction. I'm afraid I'm more exhausted than I have at first. Maybe I have to. Please rest in my room before accepting snacks. A short dream can restore my adjustments. What happened next? Continue with Samuel Hartwell until the end of his life. How Lavivia's knees. Carefully clean up any overturned liquid. Some pink petals of olean hidden underneath. The kettle is clearly visible on the dark fabrics of Persian carpets. The sweet aroma rises from the covered tea was the same as the excellent aroma. This was reported at each scene of death he investigated. Like John Pfizer, it was more vigilant. He appeared instantly in the doorway, as if waiting near a certain given signal. His actions had. He has painted previously, completely changed from the modest and useful. Now he was a warning. There are mosquitoes where someone is preparing for violence. His eyes move between Hartwell and his wife. Coordination of partners that we have cooperated several times in such circumstances. East. Everything is going well, my loved one? John asked, but his tone suggests him. I already knew the answers and was preparing to take all the necessary steps to resolve the situation. Our guests are tired of his trip. Levin responded gently. Though Hartwell realizes that she places herself between him and the release of the room only. I think he could have done it. Take advantage of your vacation in person and don't expect late in the evening. The exchange was clearly encoded. How are they planned to deal with unexpected complications of victims who are not consuming poison? Hartwell. I realize that his survival depends on finding a way to maintain his cover story and escape the hotel, without stimulating other doubts about his true personality and his goals. I'll convince the fish that night. He was really tired and needed Sonia more than food or extra drinks. Hartwell lying down. His assigned room hears furniture being barricaded at the door and confirming all doubts. He was developed by his owner. Through the thin walls and the floor of an old building, he could hear a conversation whispered, revealing the essence of their work and the immediate dangers they encountered. Investigators doubt something. Levi's voice came. He was no longer wearing the musical sweetness she had shown. Guest. His tone was cold, calculated and fulfilled in verse. Hartwell's skin lamp. You may need to accelerate the temporary scale considerably. I want to avoid exposure. How can you confirm what he is investigating? John gave the answer. The tension suggested that he was less used to violence than his wife. Perhaps he just accidentally overturned the tea. Many of our guests were clumsy after a long trip. Do not have. Just simple. Levin was barely broken by rabies. No one is missing that tea. That is, if they intentionally do not avoid his drink. While I was cooking, he watched while studying my movements. He knew exactly what to look for. Someone connected our surgery to death. Hartwell from his window. He could see John swim through the moonlight for his property. Heavy shoulder canvas. That person moved in someone's deficiency. The familiar work, boundary that disappears in Spanish trees covered with moss. Goose Creek has practical knowledge of roads that leave no traces of investigators. The outcome was horrifying. Hartwell realized that he became a witness. Elimination of evidence of previous murders, personal consequences, clothing, and even necessary body parts. Provide services to alligators infected with swimming around the area. The systematic nature of their work. That became clear. They have developed the perfect way to eliminate victims and exclusion. Data that leaves no traces on law enforcement. Around midnight, the following conversation grew bigger. We have revealed the full volume of their crime business in detail. Lavinia audio /. The wound is a plan that demonstrated months and even richer preparation, as noted in general terms. Savannah. The contacts have confirmed that they can organize their new personality, but costs become important. She explained. John. It takes at least $15,000 to completely disappear and install. We are somewhere else with documentation and appropriate links. How many additional victims do you need? John. He asked, his voice trembling at what sounded like terror, not moral doubt. It depends on the amount of everyone. Ports and costs of insurance contracts. Levin responded with daily tone, someone can use. Discuss yields and weather conditions. The cotton broker we're waiting for next week should be expensive. At least $3,000 between his money and his policies. Rice planters then cost twice as much as their reputation. For mass transfers, it is accurate. How's the swamp's body? If someone discovers we are hidden. They are still incredibly collaborative. Rainier laughed, the sound of Hartwell chilling. More than the previous anger. As someone is thinking of seeing these waters, if he never does. Nothing has been specified. Nature provided us with complete removal. System. The conversation lasted almost an hour, during which Hartwell eventually discovered the details. It leads to arrests far beyond Fisher's boundaries. They were some of the bigger network-run criminals. In all the southeastern states that have contacts in Savannah, it is creating false personality, helping to determine the Charleston, rich. Columbia's potential victims and connections provided information about the traveler's routes and graphics. This method has been improved due to years of practice and some murders that have never been linked to its operation. Levavin will be available to you during your trip by Laura Ferguson, an insurance agent, or thank you for the carefully planned random meetings at inns and the taverns. She appreciates their financial situation and sells. These are life insurance contracts where possible, gather detailed information about travel plans. Personal situation. When the victim arrives at the $6 million home, they receive extraordinary treatment. Hospitality that made them feel completely safe and valuable. Special terrine bear / prepared using recipes she made through various doses and preparation experiences. Method: the poison was particularly effective as the poison looked like heart failure and sweet taste. The whole camera with bitter taste that could cause doubt. After the victim's death, the fishermen stole money and jewels. Or removed the valuable documents they transported, and the body of Gasclip Marsh, where the crocodile is eliminated. Important evidence a few days later. Death seemed natural. The victim died alone without family. There is to participants ask difficult questions, and important insurance payments offer additional benefits. They made their operations extremely profitable. Dawn was approaching when Hartwell heard John return from him. Night activity, heavy boots at his front door as he was cleaning the mud. Vegetation in his clothes. The sound of running water suggested that he hindered evidence of his work. Swim, prepare for another day of humble and useful games. Hardwell handed the remaining clock before sunrise, carefully documenting and creating everything he heard. A detailed file he provided for submitting to the authorities in Charleston. Now he had some evidence. Murder, systematic insurance fraud, and where organizations were eliminated. More importantly, he had. We verified the identity of responsible criminals and collected information on a wider network. Crime partner. However, his immediate problem was to escape the hotel. The fisherman was clearly suspicious. His real purpose, and he had no doubt they would try to kill him. His thing. The advantage was that they preferred to maintain a presumably established method and not take risks. Complications that arise from victims who disappear without consuming poison. Free. The $6 million Wayfire home required meticulous planning and considerable fortune. At dawn he said it to the fish. The urgent trade issue apologized for demanding that it was made immediately to Charleston and reducing his short visit. However, he explains that he received news of the issue that required his personal attention. Disappointing Levia. Her eyes were standing in the cold, which suggested that she had already planned an alternative for her job, but it seemed sincere. With him. Henderson, I hope you'll come back soon, she said with a smile. It didn't look beautiful, but rather from predation. / if our paths never crossed, it would be very embarrassing. He made up his mind, but Hartwell replied, but I'm sure we'll see you again in a more favorable situation. Make sure their next meeting is in the hearing room in Charleston. John and Levavin Fisher arrested in July. March 1847 sent shockwaves throughout the Charleston society. The whole of the Southeast. Combined with Hartwell's certificate and a complete 6-mile search. Meyerator House and Swampland surrounded and confirmed their crimes. The systematic nature of their murder business. Hidden in the secret department under the kitchen floor. Authorities have found detailed recordings of 23 separate murders. It covers almost 3 years of work. The accounting book contained information about the financial situation of each victim. Plans, insurance coverage, and methods used to kill them. Levia's notes were even more vigilant. Improves venom recipes and clinical observations regarding the efficacy of various doses. A. The study also discovered an important collection of people stolen from the victims. Jewelry, watch, signature rings and other valuable items that fish could not be sold immediately without getting excited. The hidden money is over $12,000, representing the product of the flight. Insurance fraud that enriched them far beyond the limits of what legal hotels can produce. Investigation. The Gas Creek swamp confirmed Hartwell's worst fear of elimination of evidence. Crocodiles are really. After consuming most important evidence, investigators recovered enough human remains to verify many victims. Clothes, personal objects, bone fragments provided persuasive evidence. Fish systematically killing guests and placing them on their bodies above the surface of the water. More. The shock was the discovery of the exquisite collection, Labinia Laboratory. Reference materials that reveal detailed knowledge about plants, production equipment, and botany. Poison. She has grown a variety of toxic plants, including oleander and fox. Spelling launcher gloves and bob. Experience various ways to prepare for the creation of deadly poisons. It is difficult to detect with the help of medical knowledge available in 1847. His personal journal included detailed observations on the effectiveness of various substances. Clarification of symptoms and terms and methods of showing cold. A scientific approach to murder. She checked the various combinations and dosages. Find the perfect balance between reliability and natural death appearance. Olandora poison. His sweet taste hidden all the bitterness and the effect of his mind looked like his mind, making it his favorite way. Rejection. Let's do it. They were associated with and providing services to complex organizations operating in several states. Identifying the victim, creating false documents, washing money, and elimination of evidence. The network was responsible for the murders of dozens of people in the Southeast. 6 Mile Wayfair House is just one of many places for murder. Vegetables. I really worked as insurance agent Laura Ferguson. The press identity was created to identify rich sacrifices and sell their lives. Insurance contracts that are later declared by criminal organizations. Success with potential customers. He was almost perfect as he united his completely impressive and authentic beauty and intelligence. An intuitive understanding of male psychology. The couple's fawn was just as fictional as everything else. To their public characters. Their real names were John and Remini's favorites. And they were career criminals in New Orleans, and he moved to South Carolina specifically to establish their murder. Work. John had previously participated in the riverboat game plan, but Livnia, a detoured artist specializing in seduction of the rich before stealing them. Their conversions see. The replies were carefully planned and executed for several years. They learned about the Charleston Company, and were created to mimic the methods and discourse models of the aristocracy. A complex background that can withstand daily research. Their charity and community participation are designed by investments in building its reputation. They reject their alleged criminal conduct. John and Levivin's bold trial. The most sensational and crowd-stretched in South Carolina history. From all over the area who came to meet beautiful women who turned hospitality into systematic murder. The newspaper accounts described the busy courtroom. Signs about their crimes. Levivin retains self-assessment and attraction throughout the process. Flirting with prosecutors and Jew degrees is what appears to be an instinctive response to any situation. With the participation of men. Despite the circumstances, its beauty remains incredibly impressive, and some observers have pointed out. The fact that she seemed sincerely grateful for the attention of her fame brought her to her. His final statement before writing. He revealed a horrific pragmatism, which motivated their crimes. Men are very predictable fools. Beautiful women provide kindness and attention. They never doubt they can have a hand that gives tea with a smile. It is the same poison as measured with scientific accuracy. We exploited their weaknesses. A foolish hypothesis about society regarding women's virtues. John Sorrells was executed and suspended on August 18, 1847, keep your devotion to the end and refuse. Provides information about other members of the crime network. Levin continued 2 days later and became one of them. The first woman was executed in South Carolina and portrayed a massive crowd who began to testify at her final moments. Flat. In the face of death, she remained provocative and unshakable. According to the report, his final words were I regret not having time to improve the method more. If the company is insisting on treatment. Women as helpless jewelry, we are not surprised when some of us use these expectations as weapons. 6 Mitage homes were abandoned shortly after their arrest, and residents were left with a building. It rolls at supernatural speed. For 2 years the structure collapsed. Completely, like an evil placed there, somehow poisoned the base itself. The property was left empty. With rumors that for decades he was being persecuted by the spirit of a murdered traveler holding a potential buyer. Samuel Hartwell's research revolutionized the insurance sector in the Southeast. Improved coordination between businesses and more detailed information on agents and systematic journals. A statement that gives a suspicious reason. His detailed documentation in the case was an example of the manual. Methodological criminal investigation studied by law enforcement officials. Insurance investigators for decades after that. A wider crime network connected to the head. The following year, Hartwell's intelligence agency was arrested in Georgia and Alabama. Louisiana. However, some members have fled justice and run through the territory. Law enforcement agencies were less organized, and perhaps similar businesses continued in other areas where authorities were. There is little vigilance. The case establishes new legal precedents for the judicial persecution of organized criminal companies. Demonstrated the need for better communication between courts in investigating crimes that have passed through states' boundary. He also highlighted the vulnerability of travelers when communication was slow. This training was random and allowed criminals to work easily unnoticed in large geographical fields. Year later, while Hartwell was thinking about his investigation, he was surprised to see how close he had come to the other people. Victims of sadness. If he uses Livnia tea, his death is probably related to natural reasons, just like everyone else. It could last for years. For Levivia Sorrells, it remains one of the most frightening examples of it. Criminals can use the most expensive values and hypotheses of society. Ability to arm women's charm. Religious piety and Southern hospitality have produced the perfect coating for systematic murder. 23 Life, and perhaps if the investigator has refused to accept it, it continues constantly. A practical explanation of a suspicious death. This enigma shows how the appearance can be deceived and even by chance. Our most trustworthy institutions can be ruined by human greed and anger. The victims who died at Wayfair, 6 Mill House thought they were living the best example. Hospitality and Christian organizations in the South, I don't doubt that their mistress studied them with colds. Calculation of predators who choose their prey. What do you think about this story? Do you think everything was revealed on the Crime SRL network? Or perhaps there were other achievements? Who has avoided justice and continued to work elsewhere? Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Certainly, this happened on the last day before their capture. There were others too. A victim whose death was never related to their surgery. If you like this story about a fatal deception, and they explore the darkest heads in American history, and hope for more stories that have fallen by signing our channel. Share this video with someone who loves the historic puzzles as much as you do. Shadow. The countless secrets awaiting disclosure have been preserved from the past. And we will meet each other in the next video to explore them together.